Welcome to Khmer Voices, where we shine a spotlight on the achievements of the Cambodian diaspora around the world. I'm your host, Vani, aka Vanny. Now, I've mentioned a few times in season 1 how I admire the younger generation, and specifically those in their 20s who are leaning into their Khmer identity, doing the work to keep our heritage and culture alive. Today's guest is one of them. At 26 years old, I think he's my youngest guest so far on the show, and he's the first Khmer Krom person I've interviewed. Today, you'll be getting to know Cali Poeu Huynh. He's a second-generation Khmer Krom and Sino-Vietnamese American of Teochew descent. Cali works for a healthcare organization that serves asthma patients, advocating for environmental justice and respiratory health. Outside of his 9-to-5, he is a board member of the United Khmer Culture Preservation in Fresno, California, doing some PR-related work there. And he grew up grounded in community and was an active Khmer dancer, and that inspired him to continue doing community-based work. Now, we experienced some technical glitches throughout, but overall, I think the audio is still really good, and Cali's messages and his journey on how he ended up in healthcare after majoring in Asian American studies and sociology, those came through. So I'm glad you're going to get to enjoy this fascinating conversation with this young man.
Currently, I'm located in Fresno, California. So that's located in the Central Valley in California. We're right in the middle of the state.
Has there been a lot of tension with what is happening with ICE and the community there?
There has been actually, especially in the Central Valley. The other week, not too long ago, there were ICE raids that did occur throughout the Central Valley. And there were a couple of events that happened here in Fresno as well. A lot of tension, a lot of hysteria and fear regarding the ICE raids. And I work at a community-based organization, and majority of our patients, clientele, the population that we work with, they're majority Spanish speakers as well. So we also have to account for how their experiences might play a role in our ability to serve as well. So yeah, and it's because of the fear and hesitation and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, you're saying that you're feeling heavier these days because of what's happening around you, and I feel for you and everyone else that has to navigate all these feelings. Let's introduce yourself, because I don't know really much about you. I even forget how we met, because I've been meeting people left, right, and center since I started the podcast. You did give me your bio and you sent some answers over, but I'd love to learn more about you. Let's start from the very beginning. Where were you born? Where are your parents? How did they get to the U.S. and when did your family arrive in the U.S.?
Yeah, sure. So, I was born and raised in Fresno, California all my life. I was born in 1999. My family, they came to Fresno in 1998. They were refugees from the Vietnam War, and they came considerably late compared to other Vietnamese refugees. They're one of the later waves. I've been told that my family, they're the late comers. I've been told before. So yeah, my family, they were refugees in the Vietnam War. I mean, during the Vietnam War, excuse me, in Thailand. So my dad, he originally he wanted to take the boats as well, flee through the boats. But the night that he looked out, he noticed that it was really windy, and he didn't want to risk it. So he decided to go the opposite way and travel, through Cambodia and, getting to Thailand with all of my family. So they traveled through foot. And this was after the Cambodian genocide as well. So, moving into Cambodia, there were a couple folks that my family did know that lived in Cambodia, and they were able to, receive support while taking refuge and go to
Yeah,
Thailand.
I'm just trying to understand the timeline. So you said that they left during the Vietnam War, but they left after the Khmer Rouge genocide.
Hmm.
So like
Yeah, so
1979.
they left after 1979, that's correct. My dad actually originally wanted to flee to Cambodia. He wanted to seek refuge in Cambodia, but unfortunately, violence was experienced throughout the
Mm-hmm.
journey. Although, the Vietnam War ended, there on paper, the Vietnam War ended at this particular time,
75.
right? But, it's
Mm-hmm.
still the conflict and tension still occurred uh, after it was declared that it ended. And during that time, going to Cambodia with his friends to find refuge and to find a home, they still experience violence while escaping.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And
Uh,
what about your mom?
my mom, my mom, while that was going on, my mom made me stay home with my family, watching the kids and stuff like that during that time. I've been told stories by, my parents, or excuse me, not my parents, my siblings, where, my dad went to Cambodia, tried to find refuge, and then he went missing. He went missing because of the gun violence.
So you're telling the story
Mhm.
about your mom and siblings staying
Mhm.
in Vietnam. So your parents met in Vietnam.
Yeah, my parents did meet in Vietnam. And my family is Campuchia Krom. We identify as Khmer Krom.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, again, they were refugees from the Vietnam War, living in Vietnam. In Vietnam, there's about 54 different ethnic groups, populations living in the nation. And my family comes from two of them. So we come from the Cambodian community and the Chinese community in Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta. I identify as a second generation Khmer Krom and Sino-Vietnamese American, particularly of Teochew descent. Yeah, my paternal grandfather, he's from Guangzhou, from China. So, yeah, I'm very proud about my triple heritage. I grew up, being exposed to Vietnamese and Khmer.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke it growing up. Unfortunately, I can't speak Vietnamese anymore
Mm-hmm.
because I spoke more Khmer than Vietnamese. And then going to school, I obviously learned English. So, yeah, I wasn't able to utilize my Vietnamese language skills. So I ended up forgetting it, most of it, a lot of it, growing up. But I can still understand though, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I still have that connection with my Vietnamese, with both of my heritage languages. So yeah,
Do you have Vietnamese friends as well? Did you grow up with
I
Vietnamese
do.
people? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I grew up with Vietnamese folks. I grew up with Khmer folks. The part of Fresno that I grew up in, I was raised in on the east side of Fresno. Um, this part of Fresno, and if we're considering Southeast Fresno from a more broader perspective, this region of Fresno is very culturally rich. During when Southeast Asia was experiencing war, and then there was refugee resettlement. There were a lot of Southeast Asian refugees that resettled in this region of Fresno. Living alongside other populations and other communities that also reside in this region. So this area is culturally rich. Very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
I say we are the majority minority. However, just because it was diverse didn't mean it was like peaceful or it was great. There was a lot of inter-ethnic conflict as well between different ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm.
And as a multi-ethnic person, as a multi-ethnic family, we also had to juggle that tension. as
Yeah, that's
well
what I was going to
and
ask you
navigate.
about.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that?
Mhm. Well, for me, growing up, I grew up grounded on Cambodian heritage, Khmer heritage, Khmer language a lot more than I did with my Vietnamese side. Especially because here in Fresno, there are more Khmer folks compared to Vietnamese folks. I think there's a lot of more Vietnamese folks in other parts of California. However, in Fresno, the population is much smaller compared to like Orange County, San Jose Bay Area, other parts of California. So I grew up a lot more grounded with Cambodian heritage, and for
Mm-hmm.
that reason, I'm very passionate and I take a lot of pride in my, Cambodian heritage. However, again, it goes back to being proud of my triple heritage while also acknowledging that, I cannot always love myself in equal parts. And sometimes, growing up, it felt like I had to take sides. It felt
Mm-hmm.
like I had to take sides because of experiences that occurred outside the home too, as a multi-ethnic person, if you're multi-ethnic, multiracial, I'm sure I'm not the only one who resonates with having to like choose a side, have these feelings of like, what am I more of? Does that make me
Mm-hmm.
less than the other, or like, who am I? Like identity formation, it plays a big role in my childhood and in my life. And honestly, I juggled a lot of tension, not gonna lie. And as a Khmer Krom person, living in Fresno with majority Khmer folks from Cambodia, the Khmer folks I was around in school, they weren't familiar with Khmer Krom either. So, like
You're
when
answering all my questions before I even get to them. So continue on with that because I'm very curious with how
yeah.
Cambodian people looked at you and treated you as Khmer Krom.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, sure. So in high school, I began having more Cambodian friends. I mean, I've always had like Cambodian friends since elementary school. In high school, I started having more, and I started connecting with them a lot more. And it was funny because I'd be like, like I'm Cambodian too. Like, yeah, I'm Cambodian too,
And then they
And
ask
then
you
they're
where your
like,
parents are from.
yep, exactly. They asked me, oh, like, where's your family? Like, what part is your family from? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam. I'm like, oh, like my family's from Vietnam. And they're like, you're from Vietnam, but you're Cambodian? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Khmer Krom, I'm Khmer
Uh-huh.
Krom. There's Cambodian people living in Vietnam too, And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is, they'll hear me speak Khmer. They hear my dialect, and they're like, Cali, like, the way you're speaking Khmer, I've never heard that before. And also, it sounds weird. Like, it sounds weird. Like, why do you speak like that, That
Can
is my
you
experience.
can you
Yeah.
say like introduce yourself in Khmer? I just want to hear it.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, sure. So, ជំរាបសួរ ឈ្មោះខ្ញុំ Kelly ខ្ញុំអាយុ26ឆ្នាំហើយបងប្អូនឪម៉ែខ្ញុំគាត់មកពីវៀតណាមមកពីកម្ពុជាក្រោមអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាហើយគិតមកប្រទេសអាមេរិកកាលពីអឺឆ្នាំ uh, 98, so 1998. Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear it in that, but
There
if
were
you just heard
certain
me speak
parts
Khmer
where
more
there's
though,
yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah, it sort of
Mhm,
sounds like I don't know because every region in there's you can kind of if you really want to generalize it, there's like three regions you can break it into, like the middle part, the higher part,
mhm,
and the lower part, right? And
mhm,
someone's teaching me Khmer right now, and they're saying like people from the higher part of Cambodia, I forget what the term is for that,
mhm,
and talking to someone from the lower part of Cambodia, they may not understand each other because, there's different
mhm.
sayings and a different pronunciation. Yeah. But no,
Yeah, that's true.
I caught most of what you said, except, the
Mhm.
numbers part. I'm not
Sounds about right. Sounds about
yeah.
right.
Yeah, but yeah, and I did catch like a little like sort of like a twanginess to it.
Mhm. Yep.
I don't know.
That's what I like about my dialects
Mm-hmm,
because, we live in Vietnam. We're
mm-hmm,
influenced by Vietnamese society and
mm-hmm,
Vietnamese linguistics, I guess.
mm-hmm,
So we have that tonal influence when
mm-hmm.
we speak as well. Like for example, the word for, right? FOR, for. In
Huan. Mm-hmm.
Khmer, it would be sombrap, right? But then in my region, my family's region, we don't say sombrap. We say samep. We say
Ah,
samep instead, and well, the point of that is basically when Khmer Krom folks speak, we drop the R.
yeah,
We don't say the R much, and then the tone tends to like go down a little bit.
yeah,
So that's a distinct characteristic I will say about
yeah.
Khmer Krom folks when we speak via Khmer.
Is there like a, because there's also a Chinese influence to that as well? Because I noticed
Mhm.
that a lot of like Chinese Cambodian, they do sound more like how you were talking.
Yeah, that's true. There definitely is Chinese influence as well, and so my Chinese heritage were Teochew, or Teochew, and there was a lot of Teochew immigration to the Mekong Delta, in Vietnam as well, in Campuchia
Mm-hmm.
Krom. So that definitely is accounted for as well and should be factored in. I was actually in Cambodia last year. I was in Phnom Penh. I was like half studying abroad, half apprenticeship for performing arts, and also visiting relatives and stuff like that. And in Phnom Penh, the way they speak, their accent, their dialect, however you want to say, it's actually very similar to folks that live in Kampuchea Krom, to Khmer
Mm-hmm.
folks. The way they speak and the characteristics of their regional accent is very similar. And growing up, I used to be very insecure about my ability to speak Khmer, as a multi-ethnic Khmer person navigating my
Mm-hmm.
identity here in Fresno. I received a lot of comments that are like, "Oh yeah, you're like, your Khmer sounds different. It sounds weird," as they would say. And I would have to like educate them, like, well, there's other there's other ways that Khmer is spoken to depending on the region and where you live and stuff like that. And like, there's Khmer folks that are outside of Cambodia that
Mm-hmm.
still live on historically Khmer land too. And their
Mm-hmm.
experiences, their narratives are different. Over time, I became a lot more confident. I became a lot more grounded in my Khmer Krom identity, especially. And I think my trip to Cambodia even made me more grounded. It made me it kind of reaffirmed like, oh, like, like your the way you speak Khmer, your experiences, there's nothing wrong with you. Like it doesn't make you
Mm-hmm.
different or anything.
And it doesn't make you
And
less Khmer. Yeah.
it doesn't make you less Khmer either. And when I was in Phnom Penh, I was really scared about, I can adapt and I can like switch, and like speak Khmer from a more like formal, like how Khmer is spoken in Cambodia, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can speak like that too, but I was really scared and like hesitant, and it kind of like took me back a little bit. But in Phnom Penh, I realized that they spoke the same way, or like most folks in Phnom
Mm-hmm.
Penh speak the same way as people in Kampuchea Krom, and it just made me more like I felt kind of like more seen and more like I felt like I was
Accepted.
finally resonated with, more
Mm.
accepted and like embraced in the way I was able to speak Khmer. So it made me
Mm-hmm.
so coming back home, like it made me like feel like more grounded
Mm-hmm.
with my language and my ability to speak and everything. But yeah,
I
that's
have
my
two
little tangent
thoughts.
regarding that.
Oh
Yeah, what's
no,
up?
it's great. Yeah, it's great. I have two thoughts. So the first one is a question,
Mhm,
because I didn't grow up with my Crown people. I did have like Cambodian Chinese people in my life,
mhm,
but I really didn't understand later on in my teen years why Khmer people look down at my Crown people. So
mhm,
that's one thing. And the second thing I wanted
mhm,
to ask was, oh, it was regarding, it wasn't a question. It was more of a comment on how
mhm,
it's great that we're talking about this, because
mhm,
you have your perspective on how things are or what things were like from your family, if your family even tells you that. But I realized like later on in life, like as recently as last year, that we are so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Yeah.
like one culture. There's multiple cultures. And just speaking with Ryan from All Things Cambodian too, like he's a wealth of
Mm-hmm.
knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just opened my eyes to know that it wasn't just me. Like it
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're kind of cheated out of our own history. We didn't really talk about
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Like we only got what our parents told us, and like I
Mm-hmm.
said, that's only if they told us, right? We never got those history lessons on where we came from and what groups of people live in Cambodia and outside of Cambodia. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad that we are talking about this now. We're having this sort of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, let's go back to my question about
Oh yeah.
give me a better understanding of why there's this negative perception with Khmer Krom people from just Cambodian population in general.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I feel like in the Southeast Asian community, and when it comes to Southeast Asian identity, Southeast Asian American identity, or well, it happens back in the motherland too. It's reflected here in the United States. Nationality plays a big role. Nationality plays such a big role. You know, when we talk about race and ethnicity, you know, here in the States, I don't know, perhaps in Canada you might resonate, but race, it's usually just only race and ethnicity that's like often talked about, right? But I think sometimes national identity can be missing as well, and national identity does play a role in the question that you bring up. And you know, during the early 2000s and the 90s, early 2000s, here in Fresno especially, anti-Vietnamese sentiment was huge. Like it was loud. And Vietnam and Cambodia has historically had a lot of geopolitical tension as well. And because Khmer Krom folks are from the nation state
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, there tends to be some sort of tension around that because of our Vietnamese national identity. So we are Khmer ethnically, but then again, we are also Vietnamese nationals. We're from Vietnam, right? My family's from
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam. So that plays a role. National identity, national rhetoric, if you'd say, and it goes back to history. It ties back to the history and stuff like that. And during the Khmer Rouge, you know, there was negative rhetoric around Khmer Krom folks as well. There's a saying, you know, what is a saying? Something along the lines of like, and this was during the Khmer Rouge time. This is what they would say about Khmer Krom folks is that, you know, Khmer Krom folks are they're Khmer bodies with Vietnamese minds, and Khmer Krom folks were targeted during the genocide as well. You know, so I believe that must have been another factor, right, to be
Mm-hmm.
accounted for because it was instilled, it was conditioned to think that way. When I went to Tuol Sleng prison last year in Phnom Penh, they have like the rules, like they have the rules like showcase like on the campus of Tuol Sleng prison, where you know these like prisoners like victims of the Tuol Sleng prison, they had to abide by these rules and like these policies that like Khmer Rouge folks like established and put. And Kampuchea Krom was mentioned. Like you cannot mention Kampuchea Krom along the lines of like something as a way to like. I'm not gonna get into it. I don't remember, but Kampuchea Krom was mentioned in the rules, and like you can't talk about it.
Yeah,
You can't talk about it, and yeah.
it's just so sad because really that border is arbitrary, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like we're all humans, and
Hmm.
just because you were born in this area that was drawn
Mhm.
doesn't I'm lost for words because I'm just I feel anger, and I just don't understand why we
Mhm.
have to like treat each other the way that we do because you're born in another country. Because in the
Mhm.
end, like we're all just trying to live peacefully. And
Yeah.
why is it bad that why do you have to pick a side? You don't have
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Very polarizing. It feels very polarizing, and it's like I agree with what you say, and it's like we all share a common ancestor beyond these borders and whatnot. Like we have a shared heritage, and
Hmm.
and it's sad that these questions of authenticity get bring up as well, because just because we're from Vietnam doesn't mean we're not Khmer enough.
Hmm.
We still contribute to Khmer society as well. We have our unique cultural practices and traditions and experiences that contribute to Khmer diaspora as well. Um, but back in the days, there was just so much tension. And in the United States, I was an Asian American Studies major in
Hmm.
undergrad, and I wrote an honors thesis about the Khmer Krom experience and how identity is navigated and stuff like that. And there were a lot of cases where Khmer Krom folks, not only in California, in other parts of the United States too, like in Atlanta, even in Lowell, where Khmer Krom folks were met with a lot of hostility and ridicule because of their national affiliations, and even my own family experienced not the greatest feelings
Hmm.
navigating their Cambodian identity, and for a lot of Khmer Krom folks, like not feeling accepted, not feeling
Hmm.
accepted, and eventually pushing away their Cambodian identity as a result. Um,
Oh.
but yeah, a lot of tension and a lot of discouraging because of these questions of authenticity that are
Hmm.
oftentimes followed by violence, mistreatment, misunderstanding.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So when you mentioned that there were folks that rejected their Cambodian identity because of the negative experiences that they had with the Cambodian community treating them a certain way,
Hmm.
did the Vietnamese community do that too? Because for the minimal reading that I've done on this part of
Hmm.
Cambodia or this part of like the Cambodian population, um,
Hmm.
the Khmer Krom aren't treated that well in Vietnam either.
Hmm. um Khmer Krom people have gone to, I mean, not have gone to, we've gone through generations of refashioning. And refashioning is just another word for, going through assimilation, conformity, and stuff like that into a society, right? So we were refashioned into Vietnamese society because there's just been a lot of geopolitical history between Khmer Krom folks in the Mekong Delta and Vietnam. And it's been throughout generations. Um, the Mekong Delta is also a very diverse region as well, mainly between Vietnamese folks, Khmer, and Teochew, or excuse me, Chinese community, because I don't think it's limited to Teochew folks,
Mhm.
but it's mainly those three. But when it comes to our relationship with the Vietnamese community, the Vietnamese American community, I feel like we are able to adapt pretty well. We're used to, in Vietnam, we speak Khmer at home. Outside of
Mhm.
home, we speak Vietnamese, or well,
Mm.
my family. I keep saying
Mhm.
we, but I was born here in the States. But yes, my family, that was how it was. Just like here in diaspora, right?
Mhm.
Um, we speak our heritage language at home, and then
Mhm.
outside we speak English.
Mhm.
In my case, in the United States, here we speak
Mhm.
English, like outside of our
Mhm.
home. And yeah, I'd say, to answer your question again, like we can adapt.
Okay.
Yeah, we adapt pretty well. We can speak the Vietnamese language too. Um, And yeah.
No, well, what I meant was that did you find that sort of hostility towards you from the
Mhm.
Vietnamese population in the
Mm,
States?
in the States, not
Mm-hmm.
hostility, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say misunderstanding as well.
Mm.
Because when it comes to Vietnamese identity and Vietnamese history, what what goes missing in Vietnamese identity and Vietnamese history is the fact that there are more. How do I say this? In Vietnam, Vietnam is not a homogenous nation. It's not a monolith, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
approximately 54 different ethnic groups. And I think that tends to be missed out when it comes to like the Vietnamese American experience, right? Because it encompasses a lot of different populations. You can be from Vietnam, but you're Hmong or you're Mien or you're
Mm.
Khmer like me or Cham, right?
Mm.
So sometimes, when we talk about like Vietnamese identity in undergrad, I experienced this too, where my thesis advisor told her Vietnamese students that she has a Khmer Krom student talking about like his like family experience and like Khmer Krom experience and how they're from Vietnam. And the comment she received was, "Oh, like he's Vietnamese, like oh, so he's like us. He's Vietnamese too," and that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like them. We're not like them. We come from different communities in Vietnam. We're Teochew and we're Khmer. Um, However, we're born in Vietnam, so that makes us Vietnamese nationals. So there's this misunderstanding around Vietnam being a monolith and how like these other identities they get missed out. They get missed out a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's because Vietnamese identity is talked about from a national perspective, national identity. So yeah, that would be
Mm-hmm.
my answer regarding that.
Okay, thank you. I
Mhm,
definitely learned a lot just from these last 4 minutes or so.
mhm.
I want to go back to your siblings. How many siblings do you have?
I have 5. Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were a big influence on you growing up, and education was really something that your family pushed on you too and
Mhm.
supported you to pursue.
Yeah, that's correct. My siblings are a lot older than me. There's a 10-year age gap between me and my sister. And yeah,
Like
all the
your
other
oldest
folks.
sister or the
Oh,
youngest
excuse
oldest?
me.
Oh
The
wait, that didn't make sense.
youngest.
Yeah. Okay, the youngest older
My
one.
youngest
Okay.
older sibling.
Okay.
There's a 10-year age gap between us, and so they're all a lot more
Wow.
older. They range from um 36 to 40 to like over 40.
Uh-huh.
And then there's me that was born here. So like there's a gap, and
Yeah.
I was pretty much used to growing up around adults.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they were also very motivated, very driven to pursue education and to be able to succeed here in the States, whatever their definition of success is, right? They were very driven to succeed so they could be self-sufficient and
Mhm.
be able to um to overcome these feelings of survival here in the States.
Mhm. Did you have anyone else that you looked up to aside from your siblings?
Mhm.
I think you
Um,
mentioned your teachers.
yeah, that's right. So, my siblings were the ones who exposed me to different professions and different
Mm.
fields. My anatomy teacher from high school, anatomy and physiology teacher, she was the one who exposed me to public health. In my anatomy and physiology class, I learned about epidemiology, and that exposed me to public health, and that really encouraged me to pursue public health. That's my profession now. I have a degree in public health, um, and yeah, I'm forever thankful for my teacher and for taking that class, because that that stuck with me ever since, and I was very very inspired because
Mhm.
I always thought like I always have this very narrow perception of healthcare and the field of health, right? Um, and over time, I just became more exposed to, different healthcare professions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I realized like I don't have to choose like this one profession because that's
Mm-hmm.
also what it felt like, like go be a nurse, go be a doctor,
Yeah, it's a lot of
like
pressure, right?
yeah.
Especially like when you understand that you want to do something related in that work, but you don't want to do
Mhm.
what everybody knows about. It is
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
pressure, yeah. And I
Mhm.
really I want to highlight your advice to your younger self here. So you have two things here. It's that, well, I asked, what advice would you give your 16-year-old self, 20-year-old self? And you say, take things case by case. Not every path is linear. And if you're uncertain and not sure of what exactly your job or career will look like, maybe your job doesn't even exist yet until you continue building and developing yourself. Only then will you encounter it in the present moment. The future is intimidating, but make connections that will help propel you to where you want to go. And I'm assuming that's what you did. You just followed what felt right to you, right? What you were interested in. Callie and I just were talking for the last 20 minutes. And I realized that I wasn't recording. Oh my god, because I looked up at like, oh, how long have we been talking? And then I see it like start record. I'm like, no, I haven't even pressed it yet. Anyways, let's I'm gonna try and remember what we talked about and where we left off because we had some
Mm,
technical difficulties. I think it was regarding your quote. And yes, it was regarding your quote. And you basically said the takeaway is that your paths don't have to be linear. Can you explain what your path was like?
yeah, so for me, I did a lot of exploring, and I had to seek a lot of like mentorship and guidance as well in order to gain more insight with like how to pursue what I wanted to pursue, going into public health and whatnot. Because I feel like when, it comes to pursuing different careers and stuff like that, you have to choose. It's a very like linear, narrow mentality where, if you're gonna go into healthcare, be a bio major. If you're gonna be a psychology major, you're going to be a psychologist, and you're just going to be a psychologist, like there's these very like narrow perceptions of like professions and how to pursue it and stuff like that. But I think we're in a time now where that's not the case anymore. That's not the case anymore. We can pursue things more creatively, where we take things case by case and we see what can we bring to the table. And yeah, for me, it just took a lot of guidance and a lot of understanding, and just overcoming like the fear of uncertainty, and yeah, not really, yeah, uncertainty. I think uncertainty is just a very good term for this case.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also mentioned that because I asked you who you were talking to when you're trying to figure out what your next step is. You
Mhm.
mentioned that the Filipino group in university, they helped you a lot too. Could you tell
Mhm.
us like how they helped and what
Mhm.
what were you guys talking about?
Yeah, sure. So, at university, there wasn't a big Cambodian population that was out there. But there was a big Filipino American, population, and they embraced me. They invited me to be part of their club, and I just gravitated towards them a lot because our shared experience was also, similar as well. Or excuse me, our lived experiences and stuff like that. Like I just resonated a lot, and in clubs at university they'll have like a big little program where like an upperclassman will take you under their wing and be your big and be basically a mentor. So
Mm,
I had bigs that I looked up to and that I seeked guidance from a lot because they were in university more than me. They had more perspective and stuff like that. They had their lived experiences that they had to overcome with education, and they were able to provide me that same insight, and they reaffirmed me a lot. And it was also my Asian American Studies professors as well at UC Santa Barbara. My professor, Dr. Lisa Sun-hee Park. Um, she's an Asian American Studies professor, and she received her doctorate in sociology, but she also has a focus in environmental health, healthcare environmental health. And she just reaffirmed me a lot as well based on the discussions that I had with her and my conversations around fear and uncertainty and not feeling like I'll be able to achieve what I want to achieve anymore. Like, I really thought that, as an Asian American Studies major, I wouldn't be able to study epidemiology, in grad school, because of the fact that, I wasn't a biology major or something like that, but
Mm-hmm.
I realized over time that it really is about, what can you bring to the table?
Mm-hmm.
At least for public health, for public health is an interdisciplinary field. So that means that, you can be you can come from different backgrounds, different academic backgrounds to practice public health and whatnot. And public health is
Mm-hmm.
all about, what can you bring to the table? For me, it was from a population health perspective because the Asian American community is, um, you know, the community that I grew up grounded on, although I didn't really feel represented as an Asian American. And, regarding the Asian American experience, in the United States. Um, but that was my upbringing, though, that I didn't feel represented. And I really wanted to help amplify Southeast Asian American experiences and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
All of that to say, the point is that, I was very interested in working with the Asian American population. Public health is all about population health. And I was able
Mm-hmm.
to integrate that all together and explore that creatively.
Yeah. So could you tell us what your studies in sociology and Asian American history, what that has done for your current role now, and tell us what you do in your current role as well?
Yeah, sure. So currently I work with an asthma organization. And I started off as, I actually started off doing environmental health research in this organization first. But now I work with electronic health records, and I work with patient data, health data. I do, data analysis for my organization now, and I'm also involved in quality improvement because I'm exposed to the data. But no, we provide asthma remediation services for our asthma patients who get referred to our organization. And we also advocate for environmental justice and respiratory health because here in the Central Valley in Fresno, asthma is a very common health condition in the Central Valley because it is associated with air pollution. Um,
Mm.
and that is why we have this component of environmental health and environmental justice. Um, so yeah.
Yeah.
Um, mhm.
So could you tell
And
us what you're applying from Asian American studies and
mhm,
sociology in
mhm.
this? Just so people,
Yeah.
I want to show that there's, like you said, there's no linear path. There's actually,
Mhm,
if there's something that you're interested in, you take your
mhm,
experiences and figure out how do I apply my
mhm.
experiences and my knowledge to help in this role.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm all about structures and systems and communities and populations. Um, Earlier I mentioned that I was also a sociology major, and sociology is all about structures and systems, and it's all about studying society and how populations operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is such an important component to public health and improving public health. Um, and for me, when it came to Asian American studies and sociology, I was able to, set this foundation around learning about, these structures and systems and how to work with populations and different communities. So I apply that, in my organization as well. My organization serves mostly Spanish speakers. However, I've worked previously before, and I have worked with like Asian American more. I have worked with like Asian American populations a lot more, in my previous organizations as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at this place, uh, I work more with Spanish speaking populations, or our organization does.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that the population perspective isn't there anymore. Or like, yeah, like Asian American studies still prepared me for this moment, because I still have that ability to, understand populations and to
Mm-hmm.
understand how social factors might operate and might affect
Mm-hmm.
populations that we are working with at our organization.
Mm-hmm.
Public health it's all about social determinants of health. you know, that's what sociology also taught me, and Asian American studies only complemented that even more.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing this profession?
hmm let's see. I want to say starting in 2023. So 2022 was when I started grad school.
Mm-hmm.
But then my second year of grad school in 2023, I worked part-time for an Asian American Pacific Islander community. I mean, excuse me, organization that serves, that community.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as a research assistant, or excuse me, research coordinator. And I was doing mental health research. And I was, applying methodologies and, formulating research questions and whatnot to understand the community more and to see what's missing in the populations that we serve and whatnot. So let's see, 23 is 2025 now. 2 3 years.
You're a
2 3 years.
baby.
I'm so pretty new, so pretty fresh and new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you're a baby. How old are you, if you
Uh-huh.
don't mind me asking?
I'm 26. I just turned
Okay.
26. Yeah.
Yeah, you are a baby. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I could be your main.
Pretty much.
Or
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. Yeah. Call me mom. I feel better that way.
Of course, of course.
I think what you're doing right now is like a super important work, obviously. And I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. What I really appreciated when you were talking and I was just looking back at my notes as well, I realized like, oh, you seem so, you're only 26, but you seem to have reflected a lot on, what it is that you want to impact and how you want to live your life. Because, when you're in your 20s, sometimes you just want to have fun too, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah, that's right.
yeah, and could you tell me, like, have you always been like this? Have you
Mhm.
always been like self-reflecting?
I always have been self-reflective. Yeah, I've always did a lot of reflecting because I feel like I've always had to navigate like this feeling of being different and like this feeling of being misunderstood, right? Not only as a Khmer Krom American, but also when it came to like pursuing education, professional
Uh-huh.
development, and stuff like that. Pursuing a non-linear path and what people are not familiar with. It involved a lot of over-explaining, having to explain myself and like prove myself, uh, why I'm doing things the way I'm doing it and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just required a lot of reflecting and reaffirming that, I can do this, and yeah, just kind of strategizing, how I'm gonna get to how I want to get to where I want to be and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
I wanted to mention how I really appreciate that you said that you don't have to just identify as what you do for work. Like you're more than
hmm
that. So
hmm
can you tell us what else you do? What do you do for fun and how are you
hmm
still involved in the Khmer community?
Yeah, sure. So, um, School was very important for me, just based on what I was ingrained, pursuing education and like having a good profession and all of that stuff, right? But I always had an interest in the performing arts. I identify as an art enthusiast outside of my work life and outside of education and whatnot, and I explored that a lot during undergrad as well. I was a dancer. um, During high school. Outside of school, I was a Khmer dancer. um, and then over time, I became more confident, started exploring other genres of dance. It started off with Khmer traditional dance, then I eased my way into other genres, and now I like doing modern hip hop dancing. I've like dipped my toes in contemporary a little bit. But like dancing isn't my only interest, my only hobby. I also enjoy creative writing as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a swimmer. I love swimming. That is my, my form of workout, my form of movement.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the arts, though, I always had an interest with the arts. I always appreciated the arts, especially along the lines of community and ethnic identity and stuff like that. And yeah, so back to Khmer dancing. I danced with the United Khmer Cultural Preservation. This is an organization in Fresno that offers like different programs, and dancing was one of them. I was part of their dance troupe, and ever since then, I would be back and forth, supporting them. And now I'm a board member for UKCP. Um, I have a lot of appreciation for this organization because it was an ecosystem that I was like involved in a lot, and it's the reason why I became more confident as a Cambodian American and being someone in Khmer diaspora and stuff like that. So now I'm a board member. We offer different programs, and like there's language arts, so you can learn how to like read and write Khmer. There's also Khmer boxing, um, Khmer dancing, as I mentioned. There's also Khmer instrumentals, so learning Khmer traditional instruments and stuff like that. So that ties into my appreciation for the arts, for the
Mm-hmm.
performing arts, especially when it comes to community and
Amazing.
heritage and stuff like that. It's also such a important part of our health and wellness as well. It's a protective factor for our mental health. And I have so much appreciation for UKCP, and like I'm very thankful to be a board member because I get to integrate my my interests in the arts a lot with this organization.
So, how did you get involved with that?
So going back to navigating my Khmer identity, I didn't really feel that connected to other Cambodian American folks, to be honest, because yeah, I
Uh-huh.
was Khmer, but like again, like the experience was a little bit different. But over time, I had more Khmer friends in high school, and my Khmer friends, they invited me to be part of this dance troupe because at high school, or in high school, we had something called we had like this like diversity event. Like it was an assembly where we showcased, because my high school was also it was very diverse. A lot of different like communities and like populations coming together and stuff like that, different cultures. So part of our high school was like showcasing these different cultures and stuff like that. And um I was invited to be part of a Khmer dance troupe because they wanted to showcase Cambodian culture at our high school. And I accepted. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, oh my god, I would love to do that because
Uh-huh.
yeah, like I was really excited when I was asked to be part of it because like
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, like navigating my identity was like it was complicated for me. It was pretty complicated for me, and like navigating this like different experiences and stuff like that. So it was nice to feel embraced in that way. So I joined the dance troupe, and I stuck with it ever since. I stuck with it ever since, and I just became very grounded with that. That's how I started. And yeah, yeah.
Very cool. So, it's been a long time.
Mhm. It's been a long time.
Like,
Yeah. I started in 2015, I want to say.
Uh-huh.
2014,
Okay,
2015.
10 years.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm still affiliated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Only I'm a board member now for the organization as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And the dance troupe is only one of the programs.
Very
But
cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
I volunteer my time here and there, and I try to show up and still support practices when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we should actually be wrapping up now. I don't want to take too much more of your time, especially because we had to revisit some of the stuff we had already talked about that I'm so sorry that I didn't record. What are one or two things that you would like listeners to take away from your story?
Mhm. For me, I think it would be that not all paths are linear, and it's so important to take things case by case and to not be discouraged. To not be discouraged when it comes to like pursuing certain things, and you can still pursue things in different avenues, in different ways. Um, yeah. So that would be one thing. Not like not everything has to be linear, and don't be discouraged if if you feel like you can't do something. Like if you feel like you can't do something, and yeah. So that would be one thing. The second thing is that your professional life doesn't have to be your identity, your only identity. You can have interests, and you can have other identities outside of your work life. Um, I told my uncle, I told one of my uncles back in Southeast Asia about how like I enjoy dancing, and like I like do these things, right? Like that's not work. That's not work related. And then they're like, how do you have the time? So you do that during your work hours? Like, so that's your work. Like that's what you do during your 9 to 5, And I'm like, no, like that's what I do outside of work. Like that, like I have like these other things that I do outside of work too. So my point is that, like your career, whatever you're doing or your role, it doesn't have to be your only identity. You can have other things that you identify with outside of it. For me, that is as a board member and as a cultural practitioner, outside of my public health work and stuff like that. So those would be the two things, and take things case by case.
Yeah. So what do you have planned for the next couple of years? I know you just started your career and you're enjoying it. But yeah, what do you hope to achieve in the next couple of years?
I want to continue community organizing. Community organizing was always a big part of my life as well. Even in university, I was doing community organizing. It was mainly student organizing, with like clubs and stuff like that. And I was involved with community organizing outside of school too. But I want to continue community organizing, and I want to continue serving the Cambodian American population, because I feel like right now we need love, we need joy. The Cambodian American experience isn't filled with a lot of love and joy, considering our past with the genocide and stuff like that. And not a lot of folks are cognizant with like the Cambodian narrative and experience and Khmer diaspora as a whole. So I want to be part of that movement. I want to be part of that movement to showcase Khmer diaspora, Khmer identity, and how we contribute to society. And I see myself involved with the Cambodian community and with the UKCP for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you're headed in the right direction, especially being a board member of this organization that you've been part of for the last 10 years. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how can they reach you? Do you want people to get in touch with you? I should ask that first.
Yeah, sure, of course. I am more than happy to connect. I want to connect, I want to connect with folks, and I want to be in coalition with people. That's such an important part of community organizing and like uplifting identity and community. And I would love to connect with people. As far as how can people connect with me? social media.
Mhm.
I mean, I have a LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn too, you know, Cali Poeu Huynh. I also have an Instagram. My Instagram, you can connect with me on Instagram, cph dot Huynh, spelt as Hwinn. So cph dot Hwinn.
How
cph
come
dot Huynh.
how come you have it spelled that way?
So Huynh, it's because when people look at the way my name is spelled, they
Uh-huh.
often mispronounce it one. And also too, because like the word win, like that sound, the phonetic of the word win is, you know, in my
Uh,
last name, and
uh-huh.
I'm a winner. You know, like
I love
I'm a
it.
winner,
I
you
love
know?
it.
So yes. So cph.win. Yeah.
Okay,
Feel free
got
to
it.
connect.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Callie.
Mhm.
I think this is going
Thank
to
you
be
so
a
much.
really good episode too. And I
Mhm.
hope that people connect with you. And if they ever want to chat or make things happen in the Fresno area, they
Mhm.
have you to go to.
Mhm. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate being able to like talk about all of this, and I love being in conversation with like these
Uh,
things. So thank you so much, Bang Winnie, for
thank
having me be
you.
part of your podcast.
I learned so much from the younger generation. I love that Callie was so thoughtful with his answers, especially as they related to his Khmer Krom identity. And such wise words of advice from a young soul, too, right? There's more than one way to get to where you want to go, even if you don't know yet where that is. And your work doesn't solely define you. You're a multifaceted person. Doesn't it just warm your heart to know we've got Callie and other young people keeping our arts and culture and heritage alive? Alkun Callie for sharing your story. Mapoon Khmer, I've included links in the show notes if you'd like to connect with Callie. And as always, Alkun Chan for listening. If you're enjoying Khmer Voices, please give it a 5-star rating. If you haven't yet, Khmer Voices will be back in 2 weeks, and I'll be talking to a mural artist in Phnom Penh who grew up in the Netherlands.